I have two parts of my general evaluation comments. The first one, which is the traditional, I'll make incredibly quick. Excellent meeting, we started on time. I want to give kudos to Tiffany for doing a fantastic job, not just here in the meeting, but preparing in advance. You had everything set up. There were very few changes of the things you did. You nailed before the meeting. Everything moved very quickly. That's all I've got for this meeting. Now, can I have your permission to run a little bit long? I know we're 5 minutes away. I have more than 5 minutes of content, but I will promise to make it worth your while. Or at least I'll give it my best shot. Is it okay if we run a little bit long today?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Okay. The reason I'm doing this is after last week's meeting, I reached out to our club's president, Kathleen, and I asked, would it be okay if I did a little something different for the general evaluation? Whereas traditionally, the general evaluator evaluates that week's evaluators, I wanted to actually have a more broad and more general evaluation of how we're doing as a club. And the reason is because I have felt, and I've talked to Kathleen about this, that this club is known as the club that has outstanding evaluations. In the last month and a half, we've certainly had our share of outstanding evaluations. We've also had our share of ones where we've missed the mark. And it occurred to me as I've seen this, and this is club-wide, I'm not talking to any people in particular, that there's one common denominator that I've been noticing. And Kathleen and I have talked about this. So, and before I tell you what the one common denominator is, let me give you an example. One of the things I've heard quite a bit of in past, and by the way, let me just say this, today's evaluators, I thought did an excellent job, which really pissed me off. Because I wanted to pick on some people here, and we actually had some really good evaluations, so it kind of kills my momentum here, my mojo. So, thank you for having great evaluations, but you didn't do me any favors, so there's that. But in the past, not this week, in the past, I've heard, for example, one of the things I've heard is you had good eye contact, right? So if we say, if you're evaluating my speech and you say, Dave, I like the fact that you had a good eye contact, what you've effectively done, and let's say it takes you 5 seconds to say that, you've wasted 5 seconds of your breath and 5 seconds of my time because this is an advanced club, right? If we're in a regular club, someone on speech 3 that's struggling with that, then we say, okay, you need work on your eye contact. Or if the person's on speech 4 and they've started to overcome that, and you say, oh, I'm seeing an improvement in your eye contact. Great, that's meaningful. It's not meaningful for this group. And the thing that occurs to me, that one common denominator, we've heard not just that, but a number of other pieces, has been the failure to ask yourself 2 key questions that I believe fundamentally every evaluator, before you come up here, you have to ask and answer for yourself 2 very important questions. Number 1, what was the speaker's purpose? And number 2, how did the speaker execute on the elements of the speech to achieve that purpose? That's it. That's the gig. If you can't answer that, then you're speaking words and hoping that you'll stumble into something useful. As evaluators, we need to make sure that we are directly addressing that particular issue. Let me give you an example. This past Friday at PB&J Toastmasters, I gave a speech on profilers of serial killers. It was an informational speech. I had some information, I shared it with the room. This was not a motivational speech. I wasn't motivating anyone to become an FBI profiler. I wasn't motivating anyone to become a serial killer. It wasn't humorous. There was no intrigue. It was strictly informational. I had some knowledge about a subject. I was giving it to the audience. Much like if I was teaching calculus, and I had some stuff on the board here, and I was teaching you that. Now, if that's my purpose, let's think about some of the common denominators of what a speech, what we evaluate speeches on. Eye contact. What should my eye contact be? I should have eye contact, right? Because if I want you to be interested enough in what I'm saying, I should be interested enough in you that I'm willing to look at you. Not to mention that it would be weird if I spent my little time about FBI profilers of serial killers looking up at the ceiling or down at the ground. That would just be odd. So I should have eye contact. What about use of the space? I hear a lot of comments in the last month and a half about use of the space. How should I be moving to achieve that purpose? I should move to some extent, right? I mean, if I stood here anchored to one spot for 5 to 7 minutes and didn't move, that would be weird and creepy. And at some point it would become distracting, right? You'd say, what's wrong with this guy? So I would move a little bit, sort of like what I'm doing right now. I'm coming over here and moving a little bit over this way. I come in face this direction. I would move. But I don't need to move all over the place. It doesn't serve the purpose. For those of you that were there, at the last conference, this club sponsored an evaluation workshop. And I was a target speaker, and then we had 3 people from the audience that came up and evaluated my speech. I apologize for my voice going, by the way. 3 evaluators from the audience came up and evaluated my speech, and then we had a panel of experts from this club evaluate the evaluators. And one of the evaluators from the audience said, well, I would have liked to see you move more and go to both sides of the room. And Lana, God bless her heart, asked him, why? Does it do anything for him to come over here and then give a speech here and then come over here and then talk over here and then come back over here and do this? Did that make it better? No. Right? So the question of using the space, to what purpose? Is it purposeful for the purpose of that particular speech? Right? Because I'm talking about how you can give evaluations, and boy, I'm really effective right now because I'm using the space, right? I am fantastic, this is great, and I'm using the space. I'm not achieving anything for that particular purpose, right? It has to be a fit for that speech. What about vocal variety? If I'm giving that informational speech, what should my vocal variety be? The answer is I should have some. If I speak in a monotone, like a robot, that would be weird. But am I going to shout, let me tell you about the data I have for profilers of serial? No. Or am I going to draw you in with intrigue? There's no intrigue. It's information, right? Now, let's say I had a very different speech, something more along the lines of what Lena gave today. If, let's say, I had a speech where I was going to give a motivational speech, where I turned my life, bless you, I turned my life around, and I was 5 years ago on drugs and broke and homeless and whatever, and then I had some epiphany to turn my life around. I want to share this information with you. And I've just presented 3 steps on how to take charge of your life. At some point in the speech, I'm probably going to come out here and I'm going to say, Cindy, I've shared with you the 3 steps that you can do to change your life. Are you willing to do those things right now and change everything? Helen, if you don't take action right now, what will happen to you 5 years from now, 10 years from now? To the people you love, that means something to you, what about them? When it comes to vocal variety, using the space, eye contact, what changed? Everything. Why? It's a different speech.
That's right.
It's got a different purpose, right? So before I talked about eye contact, before in the informational, I have eye contact. I didn't have eye contact with Cindy. I looked into her soul. That's a different thing. Vocal variety, I'm screaming at the poor woman, for God's sakes. And I'm whispering to Cal to draw him in, right? So it's different. And using the space, absolutely. I'm coming out. I'm doing that. I'm drawing you back in. I'm doing different things. The mechanics of the speech have to meet the objectives that the speaker has. Now, 2 other very quick notes that I want to add to that. When I talk about the speaker's purpose, it is the speaker's purpose. It's not the evaluator's purpose, right? A lot of times, I've heard evaluators go above and beyond and start saying, well, I would have liked to have heard you said this. Great, then give a speech on that. The speaker has his or her purpose. That's what they came out to do, right? Even if I don't agree with you and I have to evaluate your speech, I have to evaluate based on your purpose, not based on mine, right? If you give a speech on your favorite food or politics or religion or whatever, and that's not mine, I still have to say, what is that speaker's purpose? Give an example. We had an evaluator, or a member of PB&J Toastmasters, not there anymore. And I used to cringe whenever this guy signed up to evaluate an icebreaker. Because icebreakers, you never know what you're going to get. And sometimes an icebreaker, they give you a slice of your life, and it may mention the reasons I joined Toastmasters, or it may not. He felt all speeches that are icebreakers should end with, and here's why I joined Toastmasters. So what would happen is he would critique the speaker and say, I would have liked to have heard you say why you joined Toastmasters. Great. Then give a speech on that. Yes. Or after the meeting, say, hey, thank you for that speech on your passion for fly fishing, but tell me, I'm curious, right? We have to be sensitive to the purpose that the speaker has, and it is the speaker's purpose. They own that. Now, speakers can help on this. If you write a better introduction that is more complete, we then have a better idea of what you're trying to accomplish, right? Otherwise, we may be left guessing, okay? Mark, that was sort of an issue years ago. We didn't have an idea. There was nothing in terms of manual, objectives, whatever, no intro. For a while in the speech, we were kind of guessing what it is. So if you write a better introduction or communicate that to the Toastmaster, we as evaluators can do a better job for you, all right? One last parting thought. Since I'm critiquing evaluators, now I'm critiquing speakers, I want to critique general evaluators as well. One of the things I've noticed of late is we tend to have a fixation on specificity. The general evaluator will evaluate all the evaluators based on how specific the feedback was, which I agree with. If you don't give feedback that's specific, it's hard to make it actionable. If you say, oh, I liked when you had vocal variety, well, when, how, what did I do, what could I have done differently? If you're specific, it's better. But being specific is not equal to being good. Those are two different things. It's part of being good, but it's not the whole thing. So if you come up, if I give a speech and you evaluate me, so, oh, I like your vocal variety when you did this and this and this, and I like your eye contact when you looked at Stephen in this part of the speech, and you looked at Lena in this part of the speech, and you looked at Kim in that part of the speech, right? If you did all that, you have given me nothing of any value, but you've been specific. Specificity does not mean quality. They're two complementary things, but they're not one and the same. So again, the reason I wanted to do this a little unusual this time is, and why I shared this with Kathleen and why she's viewing this, because she can't be here, hi Kathleen, is because I want to make sure that we as a club start taking some thought about how we can be more thoughtful about providing more quality. Because at the end of the day, we don't want to just be giving feedback because it's on some Toastmaster checklist. There's a lot of stuff. We've seen the CC manuals, we've been through it 1,000 times. We know what those common things that we're looking for. But the reason we're speaking in here is not to get points on some manual or on a pathway. It's because we want to become more effective communicators in here so we can become more effective communicators out there. And if we can help one another to do that, we will have done something worthwhile. Thank you for your patience.